Hello and welcome to the Great Big Indian Wellness Show right here at iGlobal. We welcome you and thank you for joining us here today. My name's Tony Patty. We're going to be talking about Ayurvedic lifestyle today. So the tradition of Dinacharya, daily routine to you and me, is one of the single most powerful Ayurvedic tools for improving overall health and well-being. Even if you're brand new to Ayurveda, it won't be long before you hear something about the importance of doing several things. So things like eating, sleeping, and also working at roughly the same time each day. Perhaps it's a bit of a discipline that we need to install in ourselves. Living a life based on the principles of Ayurveda is surprisingly doable in our modern world, and perhaps even routines into your day-to-day lifestyles. And you'll begin to see major differences in your health. So we're joined today by the wonderful Geeta Vara, Dinacharya, Varsha Khatri, and myself, who will be hosting this discussion to learn all about Ayurvedic lifestyle today. Ladies, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us here today at the Great Big Indian Wellness Show.
Hi, thank you for having us, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us and taking time out. So, Ayurvedic lifestyle, what's it all about, Geeta?
Ayurvedic lifestyle. Well, I think for most of us coming from an Indian background, we will passively be incorporating Ayurvedic principles into our life anyway. Perhaps we just don't know we are. But we have a lot of what we call Dinacharya. These are, this is the ultimate guide to preventative health. So Dinacharya are our daily practices that we have, morning rituals, evening rituals. But they're really to help us stay in alignment with nature. And I'm sure everyone will agree that we have become so far removed from the ways in which nature intended us to live. You know, we're using our ego. We're able to go shopping at all times of the evening. We're able to go to the gym at midnight if we want to, so we're just completely out of alignment. And so understanding, the basics and principles of Ayurveda now, we can really start to realize that the more we are in alignment with nature, the more we can stay healthy and happy.
Jyoti, it seems to me that Ayurvedic lifestyle is pretty much a routine. Is it quite regimental?
No, I wouldn't say it's regimental. I think for me, what Ayurveda has done is it's taught me to be able to listen to my body and know what it needs. So on any given day, I know kind of the practices that I can do. It's not like, here's 10 things you must do every single day, no matter what. And so it really teaches you to listen to your body and to work with the cycles of nature. So, in winter, you might do slightly different things to summer or spring. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, that, we're almost going back to living how our ancestors used to. And, much like Geeta said, so many of us will already be doing a lot of these things and not realizing because it's so ingrained into our culture.
Varsha Khatri, it seems that a routine lifestyle that both Jyoti and Geeta have spoken about and getting into Dinacharya is something which requires discipline. And if I'm an example of that, I'm a pretty bad example. And on a scale of to 10, my discipline levels are probably at around about 0. So do you have to adopt a certain lifestyle to adopt Dinacharya?
I wouldn't say it's adopting a certain lifestyle in particular. Ayurveda does lay out that these are ideal things to do in the morning, ideal things to do midday, ideal activities for the evening. But it's not about, like Jyoti said, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's more about self-care, if you want to put it a little bit more lightly. And it's starting by picking what works for you. And a lot of it, like Geeta said, we already do, brushing our teeth. First thing in the morning, that's something that everyone already does naturally. But then there's other factors like you do daily self-oil massage, which people really enjoy and they find relaxing. It's a great way to start your day before you have your morning shower or bath. So it's finding what you like first. Start with one factor or one change, and then you can build from there. But I wouldn't say it's regimented, and it just helps you create more structure for self-care.
Because in my introduction, I said that the tradition of Dinacharya is a daily routine, which is what you've just explained to us. But we lead such busy lifestyle. So how can we adopt an Ayurvedic lifestyle in this such busy environment that we live in? And earlier on, I think it was Jyoti who mentioned that prehistoric man has lived through this era. We have evolved over the years. Have we become a lazier lifestyle environment as human beings?
I think we've not necessarily become lazier. I think we've become more sedentary. I think in some ways we probably have become more lazy. In other ways we haven't. I'd say we've very much progressed in the mind and technology, but perhaps we've forgotten that our bodies exist and they are such a source of wisdom. So as I was saying, like, once you start doing this Dinacharya and you start tapping into more of the Ayurvedic principles, you really learn to listen to the cues of your body rather than kind of dismissing and ignoring them, which is just so powerful, because it is a preventative kind of healthcare system. It's been around for thousands of years. Like, if it didn't work, it wouldn't still exist. So I think that's really important to kind of take note of that, and to of course adapt it into our modern day lifestyle. It's not that we can all sleep by 10 p.m. and wake up by like 5 p.m. or whenever the sun rises. I mean, some people can do that, some people can't. If you're working a night shift and things, there's only so much you can do. So it's just about learning the different parts and then incorporating what feels good to you, what you enjoy, as Varsha was saying. And I think once you realize the benefits that it has and you physically see them, even if you don't feel like doing it, you're going to do it because the long-term
you can see the benefits. Yeah, you can see and feel the benefits. You say, Jyoti, that Ayurveda has been around for many years. How long has it been around for, and how has modern society adapted to it?
Oh, I think it's been around for thousands of years. I don't know the exact number, actually.
Yeah.
I'm guessing some of the other ladies might know the exact number.
Certainly longer than all of us, anyway. So, okay, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I believe it's around 3,000 to 5,000 years. I mean, wow. It's difficult to actually pinpoint because, see, Ayurveda was an oral tradition. You see, it was passed down through the oral way of teaching. The guru and student would learn. So it was kind of safeguarded because that wisdom was so sacred until, you get acharyas like Charaka and Shushruta and Vagbat who then started to script it so it became accessible. In terms of kind of shifting into the modern society, Ayurveda was really lost even in India because of colonization, which is such a shame. But it's now really kind of coming back and reviving. And, even in my experience, when I studied Ayurveda, like 15 to 18 years ago now, people didn't know what Ayurveda was. It was such a foreign word, even to Indians. So it's really interesting to see the explosion of Ayurveda, which is kind of followed on from yoga. And I know with Jyoti and Varsha, they both, teach yoga as well. So, it's Ayurveda is about 10 years behind where yoga was in the West, I would say. It's just at the beginning.
So you see it developing, you see it growing even more, do you?
Oh, 100%. Because this is the way of life. Ayurveda is, the science of life. It teaches us how to align with the rhythms of nature. And it's really about understanding that we as a human are aligned to the sun rhythms, the moon rhythms. Our body changes as the seasons change. And when somebody comes into understanding a little bit about Ayurveda, they start to understand, the dosha. So they say, what's my dosha type? But it's much deeper than that, because the doshas also govern, the time of day, which is really what we're focusing here on. The Vata, the Pitta and Kapha has an influence on the timings of the day, and that affects our body. So what Jyoti was saying about really listening to our body, it is so important, and that's our intuition. But the thing is, in the West, our mind is constantly overriding, and the ego is just taking over, and we've forgotten which voice we're actually supposed to listen to.
What a wonderful explanation of that. If you have just joined us, this is the Great Big Indian Wellness Show. My name's Tony Patty, and I'm joined today by Geeta Vara, Jyotichanda, Varsha Khatri, who join us today. And we are talking about Ayurvedic lifestyle and how it affects our lifestyles. And if you haven't adopted an Ayurvedic lifestyle yet, no, perhaps now's a good time as any to start at least considering it. So we've talked about Dinacharya, I suppose a daily routine, ladies. But when we go to routines, you mentioned earlier, one of you earlier mentioned that it's important to go to sleep at a certain time, get up at a certain time, get up at sunrise. And adopting a lifestyle as such is actually not that hard to do. So let's talk about sleep. How important is sleep in an Ayurvedic lifestyle?
Very important. Extremely important. And I think even Western medicine would say the same thing. Sleep, the great wonderful part about sleep is that that's when your body also heals itself. It repairs itself. It gives your body a break from the day's activity.
A standard 8 hours? A standard 8 hours, Varsha?
Well, it depends actually on your individual body type. So this is where also Ayurveda is very unique in that it recognizes that each individual is different. So if you do think of each person as having predominant dosha, Kapha people tend to sleep more because they often have a little bit of slower energy in them. But Pitta people are very feisty and fiery, and they're just, they can do with less sleep and they're ready to go. But Vata people always need that consistency to stay in balance. But regardless of which dosha type you are, a good routine in terms of going to sleep at the same time every day and waking up at the same time every day, it does put your sleep rhythms in a natural routine. So if you know circadian rhythms, according to Western health, it does establish that regularity where you can even wake up without an alarm clock. And when your body around, say, if you do establish a 10 p.m. bedtime, around 9:30, you tend to start feeling tired and you go to bed, you can fall asleep more easily. You get a good night's rest. You wake up at 6 a.m. feeling more fresh. But when you ignore that and you get that second wind, we've all had that. You stay up past your bedtime. You're really tired approaching your bedtime. Then you stay up and all of a sudden you get your second wind. That's Pitta time kicking in, saying, oh, wait, I've got more energy now. And you can stay up for another good few hours, but then you feel really tired the next day. So I think Ayurveda would really frown upon, binge watching Netflix before bedtime.
And you get the midnight munchies as well, don't you? The midnight munchies.
Well, that could be dangerous, Geeta. Would it be presumptuous of me, ladies, to assume that an Ayurvedic lifestyle is all about taking various types of medicines and potions in order to improve my well-being? Because up to now, there was a certain, if I may use the word so blatantly, it's to say a stigma attached to Ayurvedic medicine. And it wasn't until recent times, as you so rightly mentioned, all of you, that people have really started adopting a lifestyle towards Dinacharya and Ayurvedic lifestyles. So is it presumptuous of me to assume that Ayurvedic lifestyle is not all about taking medicines and potions and certain types of medicines to improve one's lifestyle? It's a whole lifestyle change, is it not?
Yeah, it's there's two sides to Ayurveda. There's, excuse me, the curative side. So if you are having particular health issues, then yes, Ayurveda has a range of cleansing processes, rasayana, there's herbs, there's treatments, there's a whole array of medicines that we can take to help the healing process. But equally, Ayurveda really does focus on the prevention as a cure. And as Varsha and Jyoti both said, it is about personalizing things for our body. So personalizing it to our body in alignment with the seasons and the daily timings. So it's, they say that, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Well, medicines are supposed to be bitter because, in Ayurveda, when we look at food and taste, the bitter taste actually is what is cleansing and detoxifying for the body. So, food is medicine. And, it doesn't have to feel like we're taking the potions and the churnas and, all those lovely pastes. Food is medicine. Things like ginger and ghee and turmeric, everything that's become a superfood trend now in the West. These were all very ingrained in Ayurvedic traditions because they have a
yes, and the Western world has only just discovered them now, haven't they, Geeta? Very strange. Okay, so moving on then, let me throw this out to all three of you. Why is it so important to keep similar timings daily? And I know we've discussed going to bed on time, waking up at a certain time, adjusting your biological clock, which I think, spoke about briefly in an indirect way in our conversation earlier. Right here on the Great Big Indian Wellness Show, tell us all about Ayurvedic lifestyles and the importance of keeping to similar timings daily. Geeta.
Yeah, so in Ayurveda we have a clock, right? It's a 12-hour clock, and it's broken down into 3 segments. And between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., and 6 p.m. and 10 p.m., so that's that slot there. It's the kapha period, and this is the time where the energy is a little bit heavier because the earth and the water elements are more dominant at this time. So, for example, in the morning, as Varsha mentioned before, we want to get up early and we want to do our daily morning rituals. And this is really important. And what we do here in the West, is we've been told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but not according to Ayurveda, because we might not be feeling hungry actually. So the onus is on us to really tune in, as Jyoti said, to our body and really listen in to see, am I actually feeling hungry, and listening to the body, not what we've been told from the external source. So that's one example. And then we move into the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. phase, and this is the pitta time. So this is when the sun is at its highest point, and because of this reason our digestive fire is also mirroring this. So our digestive fire should also be at its strongest point. So actually, according to Ayurveda, lunch is supposed to be the main meal of the day. And I don't know, Varsha, maybe it's the same when you lived in the States, but in the West, America and UK, we've got terrible eating patterns. And we don't stop for lunch. We eat sandwiches on the go. But in the continent, in Asia, and even in South America, people stop for lunch and they honor their body's need to refuel and nourish themselves at this time. So we want to start aligning and just adapting ourselves as much as we can within the remit of what we can do to that rhythm. And then we go into the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 2 a.m. to 6 p.m. Category. That time of day is the Vata time, and this means that the creative energies are much stronger, the air quality is much stronger, the space quality is much stronger in us. So that means we need to ground ourselves. So that's when we would meditate, that's when we do the creative things. We would really nourish and nurture ourselves, not to do heavy yoga practices or eat large meals. Again, our energy shifts, so we just start to align ourselves a little bit more to the dosha that influences that time of day. And there are many rituals that we do at certain times. There are many routines that we need to have, but it's just about adapting to it more and more, on a daily basis without feeling overwhelmed.
Jyoti, as an Ayurvedic practitioner yourself, what are the doubts that people have and the fears they have in their mind before they adopt an Ayurvedic lifestyle, through your experience?
I think a lot of it is they feel they have the lack of time that they feel they have, which I completely understand, because I think we all kind of feel like, oh, well, we don't have enough time in the day, or it's too late for me, or, I can't do it. It's not going to work for me, or something like along those lines. But I think, again, when you incorporate it just one at a time, and you realize those benefits, you will make time for it, because actually we do all have time. It's just about how we prioritize that time. For me, I know I used to spend endless hours scrolling on my phone. Social media, it's addictive. We're all addicted. Even, whether you're like 13 or whether you're 50, we're all addicted to our phones these days. So I think just thinking, like, where am I putting my energy, and understanding that kind of where you put that energy is kind of what you're going to receive back. And then I guess for some people, it's a doubt of it actually working. They so believe in Western medicine that they don't believe in this kind of Eastern medicine. And it's not really one versus the other. it's more that, Western medicine, of course, it has its place. We do need to, have regular checkups with our GPs. If we break a bone, we're going to need to go to the hospital so they can fix it. But equally, Ayurveda is great in its own way because it's preventative, because it looks at the person as a whole and it gets to the root cause. So I think if you really want to kind of have that kind of method where you get to the root of the problem rather than kind of putting a plaster on it, then I think Ayurveda is so great for that. And again, I think the proof's just in the results. Like when you realize how it makes you feel and what have you, then all the doubts kind of disappear.
Yes, that's right. Varsha, the situation of adopting an Ayurvedic lifestyle through your experience as an Ayurvedic practitioner, tell us about some of the success stories you've seen. And when somebody's on a scale of 1 to 10, they start off at 1 and end up at 10. Tell us about some of your experiences, what you've seen, where people have transformed their lifestyles through an Ayurvedic lifestyle using the tradition of Dinacharya.
Absolutely. So I've had clients with eating disorders or digestive health problems and so many other conditions. And what we do is we go step by step. So like what we discussed earlier, I don't throw them the full, daily routine. Here's the dosha clock. This is what you have to do every hour of every day. Nothing like that. But gain an understanding of what their existing lifestyle is like, and then start making tweaks. And when they start to make tweaks, like I've had clients with severe like constipation, they're on laxatives and side effects and indigestion tablets, drinking Gaviscon by the bottle, things like that. But having that, once they've established those regular habits and patterns of drinking water, eating according to their dosha, lunch being the main meal of the day, breakfast and dinner lighter in quantity as well, they slowly start to adapt. And then like Jyoti said, the results speak for themselves. I mean, these clients go from taking laxatives to no laxatives at all. And it's just, you can regulate blood sugar in this very similar way by having that structure, that routine, establishing regular eating patterns. Sometimes I do incorporate a bit of Western science as well. So combining like protein, carbohydrates, which Ayurveda actually does quite naturally. If you look at what they recommend in terms of the 6 tastes, that element that only Western science is now starting to understand has always been there.
Yeah.
And it transforms their health. They have more energy. They have more regular bowel movements. They have clear skin. Their immune system stronger, and so much more. Yeah,
that's really encouraging, Varsha. What about the actual types of foods that one can eat to adopt an Ayurvedic lifestyle? Is it veganism?
No. So I think that people assume that has to be veganism, but it doesn't. And it really depends on the capacity of your digestive fire and how strong is your digestion. So there's many different digestifiers or agnis, but if you just think about the 3 main ones, there is one for each predominant dosha. And if you have a slower digestion or a slower metabolism, then veganism is probably the best option because you need the lighter, easier to digest foods. Whereas if you have a very strong digestifier, you could handle meat more effectively because your body has a capability to break it down. So yes, you can have the full array of food. It's just knowing what can you digest as well. And that goes back to what the other said, listening to your body and being in tune.
Yeah, and I think
very
it's
well explained, Varsha. Sorry, Jyoti. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
It's also important to note kind of not only what you're eating, but how you're eating. So ensuring that you're not kind of in front of a screen, you're not looking at other things while you're eating, you're fully focusing on the food, you're really enjoying the taste and all of them kind of things. Like how you eat is just as important as what you eat. And I think we in the West really forget that aspect.
Jyoti, you run a company called My Wellness Company. How would you advise your clients about eating the right things and at the right times of the day, for that matter?
I think it's very much, as we've all been saying, kind of listening to what your body needs and what it can kind of digest. So I guess almost keeping like a food diary, perhaps, if you know you struggle with certain things, and trying to spot the patterns. After I eat this, how do I feel? After I eat, cheese, how do I feel? After I eat meat, or whatever it is, and trying to notice what it is that isn't making you feel great. I think where possible, home cooked foods is always going to be better than processed foods, shop bought foods, kind of, home cooked foods are always going to be better. But equally, when you do go out, being mindful of what you're ordering or what you eat for the rest of that day as well. Also, you can have like CCF, so cumin, coriander, and fennel tea, which is really good to just help. It's tridoshik, so it will be good for all doshas. So it will help with digestion. There's lots of like little things that you can incorporate, because it's all about balance, right? So if you are going to go a little bit off balance, kind of thinking about how you can bring it back into balance, doing other things.
I feel so encouraged after hearing that, Jyoti. Thank you. Geeta, if I may ask you, is it too late for me? And at what stage in our lives should we think about the tradition of Dinacharya and adopting an Ayurvedic lifestyle? Perhaps people in their middle ages, or perhaps pensioners, or even from a young age, from children's age, should we adopt an Ayurvedic lifestyle? Is it too late?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's never too late. I mean, we are learning till the day we die, and we can adapt, everything. So, there's a saying where they say, you're as flexible as your spine, but I think it's fair to say we're as flexible as our mind, because as long as we stay open, we are willing to step out of our comfort zone, we're willing to grow, and we're willing to adopt new practices, we can make shifts and feel better within ourselves. It's not about doing things right, it's about how you feel. So if you're feeling out of sync or you're not feeling great, then applying Ayurvedic principles can actually really help. And you say, in the latter part of our life, we're actually going into the Vata time of our lifestyle, Vata time of life, sorry. So this means that we want to adopt more Vata-based practices. So there are lots of things that we can do, and what Varsha said at the very beginning, oil massage, abhyanga that we call, the traditional word for it was snehana. Snehana means oil application, but sneha also means love, So despite our age, to love ourselves is always going to be the root of wellness. So we want to love ourselves, we want to nurture ourselves, and we also want to think about how we do that for ourselves, not being dependent on another person to do that for us. So I think that's the beauty of Ayurveda, is it really teaches us how we can take better care of ourselves, and take the power of our health back into our own hands, rather than go to the doctor and say, well, you tell me, how do I fix this? We're not fixing anything here, we're healing. And that's the difference. We're mind, body, spirit, emotions, our mental state. This, as Jyoti mentioned, it's the holistic approach that we need to take, and getting to the root of the health condition that we're facing. So yeah, it's never too late. And there's a really nice analogy, when we ask a question, what is stronger, a rock or water, right? And most people say, well, of course a rock, because it's so solid. But actually, it would be fairer to say water, because it has the power to erode the rock, yet it's so fluid and flexible. And that's what we want to be. We want to be more like water.
What a wonderful analogy. I love that. And I, for one, here on the Great Big Indian Wellness Show, am convinced about Ayurvedic lifestyles, one that I will certainly be considering and thinking of in a very serious way. This is the Great Big Indian Wellness Show, and we've been talking to Geeta Vara, Jyoti Chadha, and Varsha Khatri, and all of whom are Ayurvedic practitioners. And we've been talking Ayurvedic lifestyle and the tradition of Dinacharya. I'm Tony Patty, and thank you for watching the Great Big Indian Wellness Show. Ladies, thank you very much for your kind participation and your valuable time.